Hello, my name is Audrey Gordon, and I'd like to welcome you to day 17 of the Dataverse Advent Calendar. Today, we're going to find out what BPF stands for, and we're going to learn all about how we can use it to make sure our processes are well engineered so that our data is of high quality. As we get started, let me explain what BPF stands for. It stands for Business Process Flows. And so what it is in Dataverse is it's a mechanism to track what needs to be done by stage in a business process. So you can see here in this screenshot that I have here from our docs page that this line here represents a business process, and it's called opportunity sales process. This process has 4 stages: qualify, develop, propose, and close. And so for each stage, there's an amount of information that must be collected before you move on to the next stage. Now, you might have remembered yesterday or the day before I spoke to you about being careful with required fields. Because required fields can prevent people from entering information. So you want to make sure you don't use them too much. And so one thing that helps with this is the business process flow, because when you need information, it is really relevant to where it is in the process. So you don't need all of your fields filled out when you first submit a new opportunity. But by the time the opportunity closes, you should have all those fields filled out. And what the business process flow does is it surfaces which fields should be targeted during which stage of the process. And then you'll have some stage gates, which is like where this stage ends and this next stage begins, where you can trigger workflow. So I love business process flows myself. It's not a new feature. It's one that's actually, in my opinion, underutilized unless you're working in Dynamics where there's some of them already built for you. But I find the value is you have process transparency. People know what's expected of them at any given time, right? They're not guessing, and they don't have the opportunity to forget either because you're surfacing that. You have some data validations along the way to make sure that the data, again, is high quality, because part of having a great data platform is being able to maintain the integrity of that data. And so going through these process stages, at each stage, you're validating information so that by the time you get to the end and you're closing this opportunity, you will have everything you need. For instance, to say, tell a story about it. Talk about your win, because you'll have all that background information that you can leverage for your story. It's also a way to integrate kind of like models or templates for ways you can work. You can associate business process flows with particular content, perhaps on your intranet, that helps to explain how the process goes. And I mentioned this already, you can trigger workflow along the way. You can trigger workflow based on conditions, like for instance, if a opportunity win is over $1 million, maybe that triggers a workflow to get everybody a spot bonus. I don't know. But you can do that just based on the value of a field, or you can do it at a gate. So as you change from one state or stage to the next. Okay. We're going to actually build one real quick today. But I do want to say that in the description, I am putting one of my favorite MVPs, which is Lisa Crosbie. She has done quite a bit to kind of showcase the value and deep dive into business process flows in a way that's friendly for beginners. So she's going deeper than I am, but in a way that's very friendly for beginners. So I suggest you do watch her videos. I have both of them in the description below. One talks about triggering approvals, and one just talks about from beginning to end business process flows. So thank you, Lisa, for being so awesome. So basically, I've decided to set a process for our event services. Remember, we have an app going on right now where we're doing events for our customers, all right? So I've divided like how this process could be replicated, like rinse and repeat every time we get a new event. There's going to be a discovery stage where our goal is to pull the purpose out of the customer. What's the goal of this event? And if we can find out what the budget is, maybe we should have that budget value. And, in hindsight, this wouldn't be required in real life, I don't think, because many people don't tell you what their budget is. But I made it required here because in our case, our customers are willing to share a budget. The next stage, after we have a purpose and a budget, we put together a build of materials outline. This is for the marketing materials. So somebody's responsible to pull that together and present that to the customer. And then after that, we have an agreed upon contract value that we'll work out with our customer. So the contract value is signed off on digitally, and the contract can be uploaded to our signature repository. The next step is now we're going to start our, kind of building or implementing this by all of the quality checks we have to do. And the two most important quality checks are the document review. So that build of material, as the documents are built, then and the materials, flyers and so forth are built, they're put into a library in SharePoint and a document review is processed. Now what's really cool about SharePoint, you can use Power Automate to trigger an update in Dataverse whenever a document review cycle is complete. And so you can do that either because a person pressed a button that says document review is complete, or as documents go from draft to final, right? You can actually use Power Automate to pick up that document review is done, and then put that value as a positive value into Dataverse. So really easy to use Power Automate for that kind of thing, which means that by the time they get to this stage, they'll just be watching to see when the document review is complete, because it is a blocker. We can't go on until we've got the document review complete. Same thing for the site inspection. Site inspections can go on for a day or more, but that has to be complete before we can call ourselves delivering. So delivering, which is the next stage, occurs when we're at the conference or the event, right? And so here we're counting attendees, we're keeping a track of surveys, and we're taking pictures. And so we'll have those deliverables for our customer at the end of the event, before we actually go to the final stage, which is bill and close. So in this particular case, all of this happens in a very short period of time, so we bill at the end. And then we might note some CSAT notes, all right? So very simple process. I'm sure you could create 1,000 processes that relate to what you do every day. Tell you what, give it a try. Take something simple that you find that people don't follow the process very well, or they get confused, or they forget things. Try setting up a business process flow and see if that helps people to kind of, get with the program, all right? And if it helps your data to be more accurate as well. All right, let's go see how to do this. Like I said, I'm going to put this on my other screen, and then we're going to go to Power Apps. Now, in Power Apps, I'm going to start in the section called Flows. We've been working in solutions all along. In this case, though, I'm going to start in the section called Flows in Power Apps. So I'm not going to go to Power Automate. And I'll just show you. If you go to Power Automate, and hopefully I can sign in just seamlessly. Here we go. And I go to My Flows here. Notice that I see Cloud Flows, Desktop Flows, and Shared with Me. What I'm going to do in this case is stay in Power Apps, because when I click on Flows here, I will see the business process flows. Okay, so I'm going to click New Flow, and then I'm going to click Business Process Flow. And I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this Event Management Process, and that's probably too long, but I'm happy with it. and it will just take all the spaces out for you. If you want to change this, like say you want to have a prefix on all your events that are for US, you could do that, you know. So you can create your process prefixes the way you'd like, or you can just leave what Dataverse decides. And then you need to choose a table. We're going to drive all of this from the event table. Okay, and then we're going to create. Okay, once our screen loads, you'll see something very similar to what we did yesterday in the business rules, right? So you can kind of get the same kind of feeling from this. Basically, you've got your flow and your composition over here, and then you've got your main stage here that shows you everything that you're doing, and then you have a way to name this and put a description on it up here. So very similar to what we did in business process rules. You're going to feel kind of the same. All right, managing the process for event planning and implementation. Okay, all right, so I'm going to hit save right out the box. It might give me an error because ain't nothing here, but let's see. It's saving. All right, so we're going to start with our first stage, and as we said before, the first stage is discovery. And now it says discovery, and that's a new stage. Now I have these details here. What do I need in this stage to make sure I have? I need to understand the purpose, and this might be, I guess, another way to say this would be, what is my win statement? Like, how will I win on this with my customer? So I'm talking to my customer, I'm finding out what's the purpose of this event, and I'm finding out all the things that I can do to succeed, right? This is going to be required for this first step. And I'm going to always hit apply, just like we did before. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add another data step. This one is not going to be required, so I can just put it in the middle here. All right. And this data step is going to be called budget. Now remember, I said that some customers don't like to give their budget, so I'm not going to check required here. Now, notice that they have a sequence. This is number 1 and this is number 2. But you can always switch them around, right? If I put budget first, I can, and it becomes number 1. So it's very easy to drag and drop these around and decide what should be first. In this case, the data step should be first, okay? And I'm going to always make sure I hit apply. Now, notice I have workflow, action step, and flow step. Don't confuse workflow and flow step. They're two different things. Workflow is Dataverse workflow processes, and flow step is a Power Automate workflow process. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's do our next stage. So let's do another stage, and let's call this negotiate. And let's open up the details here. And what we need here is the BOM outline. Okay, so that there's a field that picks up that link, a URL. And then the other thing is the contract value. So I'm going to add another data step right after that. And this is the contract value. So this is negotiation is over. We have a contract. We might actually want to get both contract value, which is required. We can't get in the next step without a contract. So that would be required. And then I'm also going to add one more data step after that, which is contract signed. Okay. So not only do we know what the value is, but we actually have it signed. All right. And these are both required, which means that those two where I clicked required, this one and this one, you won't be able to go to the next step without it. It is possible that you don't have a BOM outline. I don't recommend it, so let's make it required. Okay, so basically we're saying these three things are required, because how can we work if we don't have an outline of what we're going to do? We don't have a contract signed. We don't know what we're doing, so we shouldn't continue, right? All right, so now I'm going to go back to my components and add another stage. And I'm going to call this the quality checks. and apply. And then on the details on this one, I need to know about document review. Is that done? So that there is a field for that. It's a true false field. So document review has to be complete. All right. Okay, so then we deliver, all right, and then the data steps in here, and I can scroll over on the bottom here and start navigating this screen. My data step for this is record actual attendees. So we had an estimated value earlier, but we want to make sure that we have an actual value for the number of attendees, and that's required before we can close this out. Next data step that we're going to do is the photos. Make sure that the photos are uploaded. And so photos uploaded. We decided we're just going to upload our photos to SharePoint, and so the photo location is a link to a SharePoint document library, but we do need that link so that Week Marketing can have access to the photos and use it wherever they need to use it. All right, and then we're going to add one more thing, which is the bill and close. So we're going to add another stage, and we're going to call this bill and close. Apply, and then the details here are going to be, well, I already added one. It adds one for you already. Invoiced, and this is the invoice field. It says required. They should be invoiced before we move to close. And then CSAT notes are any customer satisfaction notes that we want to record. I'm not going to make this required because maybe there are none. Okay. And then finally, that's it. So there's our business process flow. I'm happy with it. So I'm going to press save. There's a few things I didn't talk about. Again, this is an introductory video. You can have conditions on stages. You can have branching with these business process flows. For instance, you can branch it by category. For instance, in the discovery phase, if you discover this is a Power Platform sales opportunity, then the business process flow can be visible for the sales team and not necessarily for the marketing team. They can have two different business processes for those two groups. And you can actually secure your business process flows by security role. Okay, so now I'm ready to activate this. I'm going to start by giving it to everybody for visibility so that they can all see it. And then after I've added it to everybody's security roles, I can double check. It is added to all security roles. And now I'm going to save. I'm going to validate. And if you had any errors, it would tell you. It would see it's successful. And then I'm going to activate. This can be a little, it can take up to a minute. And I do find that sometimes it does get stuck. I deactivate. Yep, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to close this. Go back to Power Apps and run my app. It's the same app we've been working on the whole time. And I know that I do have an event scheduled in a datum. So I'll go to the related events there and open up this event, that process. And now you can see the process at the top of the screen, right? So the event management process, this is the new stage we're at right now. And we have the purpose and we have the budget. Notice it checks it off if I've already done it, right? So then I can click on next stage. And then from here, I need this, the contract value and the contract sign. That's all done. So I'm going to click next. Quality check. Oh, our document review is not complete. So if I click next, it says document review complete. Required fields must be filled out. So I cannot go to the next stage until this is yes. Okay. And so I can peek at what the other stages have. Like, for instance, it thinks it has enough, it has the photos and the actual attendees. Although when I get to that stage, I might change that number. And then finally, if I want to peek at what needs to happen during bill and close, I can see that there. As you can tell, the red mark in the bullseye lets you know here's where we are today. All right, so then I'm going to save and close. And that's all I'm going to cover today. Or it's just a matter of getting used to it, in my opinion. You know, once you're used to it, it just works, right? So we did this workflow. We did not make budget required. And we noticed all the check boxes that came when we had done stuff already. So I hope this is helpful. I really, really do love business process flows. They are one of my favorite things to use because it helps with efficiencies across people, especially when there's multiple teams responsible to have a process. And it helps keep the data very clean and very properly filled out so that we don't get a lot of null values when we need the information. I bet you can feel me there. All right. Well, that's it for today. I'm going to wish you a happy holidays and look forward to talking to you tomorrow on day 18 of the Dataverse Advent Calendar.